All right, welcome.
Welcome.
So yeah, let me introduce Robert. Robert is a mortgage broker. We work together. He's got 15 years of experience in property and finance. He's with Dominion Lending. He is an awesome mortgage broker, and um, I know as a real estate agent, I get asked all the time, do I lock into my rate? How do I get money so I can buy a property? And there's just so many things to talk about. I get asked all the time. This is my first live webinar, so thought I'd try it out. Bear with us, and I'll turn it over to Robert. He's going to walk us through how to buy property, how to finance property, all kinds of good stuff.
Great. Thank you. Yes, my first time on Facebook Live as well. Daniel, normally we do webinars with the realtors. We invite a bunch of people, guests, clients of ours to come out and have a talk about it. So let's hopefully these slides are gonna roll. Let's find out. Yeah, I mean this. So when I came to talk to you about this, I mean this was really something about really about the average family, right? Just like us, young family. We've got kids, we've got jobs, um, but we want to we're thinking of the big picture of our goals, right? We've got some debt with kids that we're working with and so forth, and we want to figure out a way to, how are we going to ever build some wealth for retirement or pay off our mortgage any quicker, and um, how can we get that deposit for the down payment, and and how can we get into the market, and do we have time for it, and all those things, right? We just want to be part of the this real estate growth that's happening here in Ontario. So that's really who I think our audience is, and that's who I like to talk to, because you don't have to be a wealthy person per se to make this happen. You don't have to have a lot of free time. There is, of course, a little bit of work, but it's not as daunting as some people feel.
I agree.
And
It's one of those things that anyone can do it. Not everyone will. So I guess I always ask everyone, will you, right? Not everyone can do it. Sorry, everyone can do it. Not everyone will. Will you?
right, exactly. Correct. And I think it's really like it's just depends on who your circle is, and if you know someone that is like you and is doing it, or or even just that one extra property, and that's why I call this presentation one property away, because I really kind of show people how much more you can, reach your goals. Those goals being paying off that mortgage faster, building wealth for retirement, helping your kids out, with just that one extra property, and just a little bit of planning. And it's really, knowing guys like us, like you and me, and so forth, that can help them reach that goal. It just gets them over over that hump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, what I talk about here, of course, is that this is not like a secret system. It's not a magic formula. It's very simple. It's like you buy one extra property, you hold it for about 10 years, and then you can sell that property. And with that increase in value that it's gone up, and after you've paid off the commission and the taxes, you still can use that extra money that you gained and pay off your current mortgage on your own home, and you can be mortgage free. And that's one of the strategies. You can go that route, and that's the very simplest version of this. But that's really what I want to talk about. It's not, there's no great magic here. It is, there is a few things you have to do, a few hoops you have to jump through, of course, but that's really what this is really about.
You just got to start somewhere. I find that a lot of times people, the average house in Toronto is 1.5. How could I ever even dream of that? And it's like, no, hold on. there's $500,000 houses still. It doesn't mean you have to live in it. Maybe it's an investment, you know. But it's not like you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to start. So sometimes you have to, you know, either raise your budget or lower your expectations. But whatever it is, you need to get in the market, because in 10 years or 5 years, like, you'll have no chance.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'm just going to run through a couple of slides here just to talk a little bit about it, tell you who I am. So as you mentioned, I'm a broker. I'm also a multifamily real estate investor. So, you know, I love to talk to people like yourself and your clients and, you know, friends of mine as well about, you know, realizing their dreams through real estate, using it as that vehicle. So this is something also that I am working on. I'm not saying you should rush out and try this on your first foray into property investing, but it's something that can work in Toronto, can have positive cash flow. It does require a longer cycle and so forth, but it does, you know, and having a great real estate agent, a great mortgage agent, you know, having an architect and general contractor and those types of things. So this is a project that I was doing again on the side, and I purchased this semi-detached house in Toronto. This was an estate sale actually, and I got it I think at the end of 2019.
Good timing.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a summer lull. Literally, I think it was over the August long weekend. So that's a little tip for your viewers out there. Long weekends are good in the summer because there's less people shopping. You know, everyone wants to be at the cottage or taking a vacation, and there was a lot less people around shopping. So
I actually find today, like right now, that's kind of where we're at. You know, it feels like we're mid-July, you know, with the patios opening up. You know, I really feel like everyone's just trying to get out, and, you know, I look at the traffic on the road. Like, I think right now this could be like a 2-week window to hop on. You know, we've had a few listings this week that we set up for multiple offers. No one showed up. You know, so, no one's stealing anything, but you can get a summer deal today.
Right, yeah, and yeah, there's a lot less people bidding against you for sure. Yeah, I think you're
like
right.
2 months ago, the property that I was talking about would have had 30, 40 offers. We had only one person showed up.
That's right. Yeah, and they, you know, and they're probably the winner, right? So
yeah, they got it. I think they did great.
So that's, you know, that's what people want, right? Because you know, what I'm hearing out there as well is that yes, that can be an issue, right? Of one of the things that they're holding off on. So we converted we converted this single family home into 3 legal apartments, and we project that the income's about $8,000 a month. We separately metered it, so they all pay their own hydro bill. After the mortgage and other expenses, we cash flow $1,100 a month. And we have a principal pay down.
Which I think that's something people always overlook, you know. Oh, the rent's, you know, $1, but the mortgage is 80 cents. So I'm not really cash flowing. It's like, yeah, but you're paying every 5 years, you're paying, you know, 25% of your mortgage down. It's no joke.
That's it, correct. And it's not you that's paying it, your tenants are paying it.
And you're the only one who gets the upside, right?
Like, that's right.
I've had property where we tore it down. The tenant left after 30 years, and I could just see in his eyes, like, I just made you rich, you know?
Right, exactly. So, you know, and this property here, you know, we said, okay, appreciation 5% a year, which I think is pretty conservative for Toronto. And then altogether, you're looking at, you know, about $12,000 a month in total return, or a total return of 34% ROI on your initial investment.
Actually, that's another question I get a lot. What's ROI? Return on investment.
Right, return on investment. So return on the amount that you're originally putting up to get the property, correct? And then what I used is other financing with a home equity line of credit on my own principal residence to cover the expenses associated with construction of the property. So that interest is actually, it can be deductible. This is sort of like a little bit of an accounting trick. So normally expenses to do construction have to be capitalized, which means you have to, over 5 years, you can depreciate those expenses. However, if you can convert it within 1 year and rent it out, then you actually have income coming in. You can actually, a good portion of it, you can actually expense as an expense. So you can even create like a rental loss on your first year. So these are some of the accounting tricks that you can work on. Although if it goes over a year, you don't get that opportunity because you can't, technically the way CRA works is that you can't actually use your expenses if there's no income coming in.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there are a few little tricks here to actually save you money on the tax side and make it easier. But again, I just put this up here just to show you that not only do I talk about it, but I walk the walk, and for what I want to talk about.
It's funny. It's my biggest pet peeve. You've got so many real estate agents, telling everyone to buy, and then you find out they don't even own a house, and it's like,
Right. Right. They're not investors. They don't have investment property. And, I always say this, and you want to talk to someone who is doing it for themselves, who can speak confidently about it, who's been, who has the contacts that say, yeah, this person is good, the property manager, the insurance person, the handyman. They can, they have a whole list of people that they can help you with. And you want that going into it. You want that peace of mind, because people don't have the time. If you have, as we said, young families, jobs, kids, that's what's holding them back. Those types of connections.
a lot of limiting beliefs. I always hear the horror story about a tenant, or I don't even know what I'm doing. It's like, no, if you get the right team on your side, like, you can even be a silent investor if you want.
Correct. That's right. That's right. So what we say is that, look, I mean, if you purchase that one investment property, as we mentioned before at the beginning, hold that for 10 years, sell that property, and you can pay off your own mortgage within 10 years. You might be able to retire even 5 years early based on the growth in your investment portfolio and so forth, and the cash flow that you may be receiving over time as that mortgage gets paid down and the cash flow goes up. And that means that you can create a possible pension for your retirement. And also you can, one of the ways that people like to think about it is that they want to buy a property for their kids. I mean, that's a big thing today. As you mentioned, property prices are so high, and kids are going to
Actually a goal of mine too. I said, like, I got to buy a house for my kids now, because my oldest is 6, so let's say in 20 years he has to buy a house. Can you, like, I can't even imagine.
What's it going to be like? Correct. Yeah. And like, are the salary, so like if you have that inflation that's taking place now, incomes are not keeping up with that.
The cost of building is always going to keep rising. So, you're going to have, our shoebox condo now that's 400 square feet. I don't know, in 20 years, it's going to 55 square foot condo.
Right. And so yeah, so that's the thing. So we say, like, listen, like, why wait 20 years to help them buy a house? You should start now, buy that house, have it as a rental property, and then you can either, transfer it to them, you can sell the property, you can give them the equity return, but exactly.
Sounds like worst case scenario, you're going to be giving your kids a mortgage-free place.
Exactly. Yeah. Or exactly. So that's why I say, why not? You should be buying at 2021 prices and not at 2040
Right.
prices, if you want to help them out. And that's so one of the things that us and our team here that we're most proud of is that we've helped over 100 families join this One Property Way program. Even 50 of them or so have gone on to purchase a second property.
Didn't know that. Wow. Nice.
So just to put it out there, like cost wise, as a broker, all I'm doing is helping you find the financing, find the lending. In most cases, it's at the regular banks that we all know, that we all work with, and I get paid by the lender. So there's no cost to talk to me, to run the numbers. Happy to do so. That's what I do. If I can help you figure out a plan for you and your family, that's great. And there is no cost to do so. Just want to put that out there at the beginning, because people kind of like wait till the end and say, okay, what is this going to be?
No, it's a good point. I think that's, someone will walk into the bank and then get rejected and think they can't buy. And I think that's a huge mistake people make. Like, for example, the mortgage you just got me, I had never even heard of that bank. Like you go to so many lenders and each lender is specific for each person's situation, right? Like, you wouldn't take a self-employed person to bank A, but you might take them to bank B, C, whatever. It's all those lenders we don't know. Like you said, you get paid by the bank, so it's a no-brainer.
That's right. That's right. So, and we have, in the broker channel, over 50 lenders that we could talk to. That gives us a huge advantage. Each one has a different risk profile, the banks, I mean, and they have different rules. And so, everyone's situation is a little bit different in the sense that, how do they earn their income? Is it self-employed? Is it through the T5s? Are they dividending income as a business owner? Are they just salaried? Is it variable salary? Are the hours guaranteed? There's so many sort of nuances to it, and every bank lender has slightly different rules. And because, as you mentioned at the beginning, that yes, it is harder to get to qualify today, walking into that bank and having them run your credit and so forth, and rejecting you, well, it's not the right way to do it. Not when you want to, look at your options for rental property.
I mean, you might get a better rate, but it might be the difference between getting a mortgage and not getting a mortgage. So
exactly,
I always use brokers, even for myself. I don't know why I go to one person when I can go to 30 and not pay.
Exactly, correct. So the things that we wanted to talk about with rental is the things we just mentioned briefly, was that cash flow, leverage, ROI, as you mentioned, net worth. I want to also mention, give a slide about how banks, how they invest their money, and what that tells you about risk. Why we feel that Ontario is the best place in Canada for real estate, and real estate versus what we're doing today, what many of us are doing today, the RRSP. If you're a responsible parent, you probably have RESPs, mutual funds, and how those numbers compare, sort of an apples to apples comparison of what we're doing. And then we overall plan, like how to create that $2 million plus for retirement, easier than you think. Okay, so we always ask people to say, listen, think about your own situation, and am I doing the best I can with what I have? Is what I always like to ask people to be thinking, as I'm talking about this stuff. So you mentioned condos. Condos here in the city are a great investment vehicle that for first timers to sort of get into. There's also townhomes and so forth, and the properties can range in Southern Ontario. I don't just mean Toronto, but around the Golden Horseshoe, around the $500,000 range or so forth. And so what I wanted to say was that, for an investment property, you need a 20% down payment. So that would be 100,000. You would get a mortgage of 400,000, and that would be your property, right? If we say that that property is going to appreciate at 5% per year, which is conservative based on, the last 30 years in Ontario, it's averaged about 7% over 30 years annualized. But we're going to just say, just to make this more conservative, or say it's about 5% a year. We're going to go with that. That's in the Golden Horseshoe. That's not just Toronto. That's the Golden Horseshoe all the way around, Hamilton, Niagara, that region as well. So you buy that property, 500,000, you hold that for 15 years, that property value at 5% a year, if you do the math, works out to a little over $1 million, Daniel. And your remaining mortgage is about 250,000. Your equity in the property would then be 788,000. And then if you minus out that initial down payment you paid, you've got $688,000 of equity or profit if you sold it. Now there's going to be some realtor commission and some land transfer tax. I'm going to
realtors.
I'm going to put that aside for now. I mean, that's something that can happen. It is, yeah, that is part of the game, but I don't plan on paying that, and that's just because I plan on continuing to suck money out of the property by refinancing it and continuing to grow my portfolio, and that's sort of an advanced strategy, of course, and we can talk about that. But even if you held this property another 5 years, so then your property will go up to even 1.3 million, and your remaining mortgage. Oh, sorry, lost that there. Equity in the property. Then you minus out your 100,000, and you're left with just over $1 million. That's after 20 years. So, if you own 3 of these, you'd have 3 million in there. I mean, the numbers are pretty, they're pretty big. It's pretty wild to see that played out.
I always tell everyone, imagine you bought one property every year for the next 10 years. You'd be set. You literally wouldn't have to do anything. One property every year for the next 10 years.
Yeah. That's just one property. So let's talk about about the lending side, because that's important too. I mean, how people do it, right? So, and how people look at real estate versus the stock market, and, and where they're putting their money or so forth. And, and then how the banks look at the lending side of it. And that's really important because, what the difference is really based on what we want to talk about here is leverage, and how, the reason why you can get that much further with real estate than the other things is that you have the banks are going to give you the financing to leverage yourself. So if you went into the bank and you said, I have 100,000 and I wanted to purchase a business or start a business, and you asked them to help you with that, what do you think they're going to say to you? Are they going to either ask you, can you match that 100,000, please? Mr. Banker, I've been at this branch for the last 10, 15 years. What do you think? How much do you think that they're going to lend you from a business? Probably zero. Banks only give you money when you don't need it for loans. But just for this example, I'm going to say you're going to need 100,000. They're going to give you 100,000. And then if you went into the bank and said, I want to invest in the stock market, and I want to take some, but I want you to give me some money on margin, and so I can invest even more. Well, if you're a high net worth person, you've got like $1 million with them. Very few people have. They'll give you something, but for most of us, they're not going to give you any money to invest.
My favorite is when they're trying to sell you their own product. Like, here's a bank stock, and some government bonds, and it's like it's their product they're selling. They still won't lend you money. They'll only lend you money on real estate.
Right, right, and that's it. So but here I'm going to say, just for this game here, I'm going to say, okay, look, they're going to give you the money because they're they want to. You're a big customer of theirs, and so forth. On the property side, they're going to give you 20. They're going to give you 80%. They're going to give you right there a big jump, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 500,000. So 20% of that they're going to give you. So if your goal was to make 100,000 over a 5-year period, here you would need a 50% return if you had a business. You would need a 50% return if you had a stock market shares. Here you only need a 20% return. And that that right there should tell you something, that the banks want to lend on property.
Yeah, wonder why. Because it's the best investment on earth is earth.
That's it, correct. And it's not even like, you can tell them, I don't even know where the property is going to be. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be a bungalow. I don't know if it's going to be a 3-story house or so forth. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, if the property is in good shape, they're going to lend you on it. And they're going to give you that 4-to-1 leverage. So let's look at it again this way. So when we look at it here, why Ontario? Why is that the best place for Canada that we feel now for real estate? Well, you've got, outside of COVID, of course, over 125,000 people moving into Ontario every year. Okay, they need to live somewhere. And, yes, there's that, we all think of the, foreign money coming in and buying up all this property. But the truth of the matter is that most people who come to Canada first, they rent, actually. And, they don't, so they rent, they want to see where they're going to be. That really, what happens is that really dries up a lot of the rental supply. Foreign students, they rent, right? They're not, most of them are not buying. I know we hear the sensational stories, but the truth is that a lot of them coming here for higher education and so forth are renters. And so between those two groups, that's eating up a lot of the rental supply. And what happens is that, what does that mean? It means that as it goes out, more investors come in to offer rental supply because there's a shortage, a supply and demand shortage. And, we just went through a tough period with COVID, where Toronto, because it did not have those initial groups that were coming in, new immigration, those students, of course, foreign students, non-permanent residents, as they're called. It's a big proportion of the net immigration into the province, and that's a short-term thing. In fact, as we get out of this COVID, out of the pandemic, it's bouncing back. And I think you can even see now, like, if you went to, I could show you later here a graph there from rentals.ca, which is a great one that we use, that shows that, the market is really sort of, for rental, has sort of bottomed in May, as far as the numbers go, the rents, and they're starting to go back up again. And it's going to continue to do so as we open up the economy and so forth. So it's great to get in now, while, you can sort of ride that up. because as it goes up, drives in more investors into the market, and that those properties are going to go up in value. So it's a timing thing. I think it is a good time. So those are really important. And what's also important long term is that, you know, we're not dependent on one industry here in Ontario. We've got many. We're not like out west or oil and gas, which is a much more boom bust economy. So again, unemployment is really low here, averaging around 5.9%, which is slightly below the Canadian average. And vacancy, again, is traditionally about 1.1%, which is much lower than the rest of the provinces in many cases, in many places. And as I said, with the pandemic, Daniel, coming out, we're coming back to that. So we also have household income here is going up. We are increasing slightly above inflation, and that's important. And why? It's because we have a lot of businesses that are moving into Ontario that want to be here. We've got a good high tech sector, and you know, a lot of new companies that are moving in here. So all these factors, I think, really play into why Ontario is a great place for investment property. 30-year average, I think I've just touched on that. So far in Ontario has been 7%. Okay. But, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit just after this slide here. In fact, maybe I should talk about it. And it is why, like, okay, people are thinking, well, it's been going up like that. You know, why would it continue to go up forever at 5% or 7%? Robert, what if it doesn't go up? You know, why is this still a good idea? And I want to show you why, because it still is better. So first, let's just talk about this. So what your financial advisor doesn't want to know. You know, note to the financial advisors out there. So, you know, this was something. This was when this was shown to me and my wife. I know we were like, wow, interesting. You know, it drastically changed, I think, how we invest, where we put our money. And when I show this, when I do this in person, when I show this to a lot of clients, it's like 2 slides. You know, they're like, wow, you know, so it's basically just a comparison of apples to apples. So RRSP mutual funds versus real estate.
This will be a good one.
So if you're a responsible parent, like many of us, you have an RSP or an RESP, I should say, and you're putting away, if you have a couple of kids, you're putting away probably about $400 a month investment. And, you know, I've read the literature on this. You know, of course, the government will kick in some money to it. You're going to put it into a plan for them. And as you invest with that over 12 months, 15 years at 5% ROI, you're going to look at, it's going to come to $100,000 after 15 years. $400 a month, 15 years.
In 15 years, I won't even pay for a year of school.
Well, right. So, right, exactly. So, you know, what is that really, what is that 100,000? Is it going to really change? You know, is it going to really change a lot? You know, and, you know, but this is what your financial advisor, you know, is giving you the literature for it. And they're, you know, they're doing their job, like mission accomplished. And you're like, you know, after, okay, 15%, you know, after fees and such, got $100,000 in there. You know, I don't know, what could I do with that, right? It sounds good that you're going to put in $400 a month and you're going to end up with 100,000. But, you know, can you send your kids to school with that? And residency costs and in 15 years, I don't know. How is that really going to impact your, you know, yourself or even the RSPs or your retirement? But you can't fault the financial advisors because they've done what they've said that they're going to do, right? And that's what um, it's mission accomplished for them. When we compare that to real estate, so if you want to borrow $100,000 down payment, and if it would cost you $400 a month approximately in interest cost, if you're going to borrow that money, so basically all I'm doing is I'm not saying you're going to get new money and you have to have more money, we're just going to take from the left side what you're putting in your RSPs and so forth every month, and you're going to instead use it to borrow $100,000. Okay. And you're going to buy that $500,000 property. You're going to own it for 15 years, 5% appreciation, just like the 5% ROI that you're getting there. And then, after your mortgage remaining, you've got $250,000 left in the mortgage. As we said, you've created almost $800,000 in equity. After 15 years, you can sell that property. You're left with $688,000. So you've got 100,000 versus 688,000. 641% higher ROI.
So left side, you're buying a Mazda. Right side, you're buying more real estate.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was like pretty eye-opening, So I know it was for me and my wife, and I know that there's conspiracy theorists out there who would say, well, no way, no way you're going to get a 5% return on real estate every year for 15 years.
If it's Toronto, they get way more.
Right, exactly. Like we've already, okay, I think we've lost it. So we've already got 7% for 30 years. But let's just say what if, right? Let's just say, what if real estate only appreciate 2% a year, Daniel, instead of the 5%? And the mutual funds, the RSPs that you owned, were going at 10%. You're getting 10% a year back on that $400 instead of 5%. Well, what's going to happen after 15 years? Well, I did the math. And I said, well, guess what? You're going to get $167,000 from that $400 a month. But for real estate, you still get a higher ROI. You're going to still end up with $323,000. Almost 200% higher. Still. You're getting 2% return every year on your real estate appreciation, but you're getting 10% on that $400 a month that you put in. But you're still better off. So I always say run the race the right way, the only way. And, why is that? So, and it's because there's no special formula here, so it's just because, it's real estate at $500,000. You've got next year it's 2%, it's worth 510, 520, and so on. It's not because you picked the right property or you picked the wrong mutual fund. It's not a special system here, right? You're starting out of the gate with $500,000 versus $400 a month, right? So the traditional route, you're starting out at $400. Next month it's $800, then it's $1,200. It's a long road up to that over 100,000 with that 10% a year. So what we're talking about here again is leverage. You're leveraging yourself with just that $400 a month, same payment, same thing same cash flow, same payment, but you're ending up way farther ahead.
I feel like even if you got a 0% return, you'd still be further ahead just with the principal pay down.
You guessed it. You caught you caught my you caught my next one here for sure. So you would be farther ahead, in fact. I think I have the slide here. I think I added it here. I'm going to show it to you, I believe. The old school way is, so hold on, right, okay, so here we go. So if you want to accomplish this with, with your current monthly budget, right? So, and that's important. Um, So let's assume, here, Daniel, that, with your mortgage payment, you've got maybe some consumer debt, you've got groceries, everything you say is going to add up to about $3,000 a month for your family. And you guys are going to say, when you have clients that come in, they're going to say to you, listen, we can't afford another $400 a month payment. I'm sorry. We don't want to spend any more on that. And, my wife's on maternity leave, or I'm self-employed, or the kids are in daycare. There's a lot of reasons. Whatever the reason is, I say that's fine. You know what? Let's look at a scenario.
Too much Uber Eats.
Too much Uber Eats, right? So I say that's fine. Let's look at a scenario where, we can buy you an investment property and keep all your payments in there for the same thing at $3,000 a month. Let's see if we can build you out a strategy that doesn't increase your monthly budget. And you're like, what? Okay, let me run the numbers. And if it's a possibility, we'll build a proposal for it. I'll show you all the moving parts. I like to, I'm very visual. I like to see it all on the screen, on paper, and we build that out for you. And we'll show you. But you might also be, and that's, you might also be someone that says, actually, Robert, we're fine, and we could actually increase our budget. And that's something that, several people that I work with, they're happy to keep it there. But they would like to add real estate to their portfolio. And I'm like, sure, we can go in that direction too. But I would say 60% of our clients is probably what we're doing is we're rejigging, we're refinancing, and we are shifting some debt around to make it work and keep it within their own monthly budget. And I have an example at the end here. If we have time, I'm just going to run through with you guys. So there's that old school way of retiring, like this is what we're saying that, and I think I'm dating myself here, when I'm talking about the Wealthy Barber. Many of us have read Dave Chilton's Wealthy Barber,
one of my first books.
Yes, which says, pay yourself first, pay down your mortgage, become debt free, defer your taxes, and then later pull it out. And there's something, our parents said too, right? So they said, for us and our grandparents, pay down your mortgage, and, then life is going to be grand. And I think, they say, once you reach that, you're like, great, they've reached that 20 years of doing it, $2,000 a month, let's say, whatever the payment is, they've accomplished it. They've grinded away, worked overtime, they budgeted, But when you come to retirement, you've got your traditional investments, you've got the equity in your house, and you have a couple $1,000s now more in your pocket that you were not putting towards your mortgage. But I don't know if that's going to change the quality of your life, right? Can you do big things with that? Probably not. What do you want to do then? I mean, if all the equity is now tied up in your principal residence after 20 years. So, well, you could pull it back out again, and that's pretty ironic, I tell people, because, you're putting a mortgage or a reverse mortgage back on your property, to refinance and get that money out. You just spent 20 years paying it off. You could sell it, you could downsize, you could put some of that, you put some money into your pocket, but then where's it going to go? What are you going to do? Like, where are you going to put it? So you could maybe earn 3 or 4% somewhere, once you sell off after 20 years, you cash out. But, so this is the traditional model, believe it or not, that most of us, 95% of us, are really on this plan, on this path, right? Paying off our principal residence mortgage, and then we're going to sell, we're going to downsize, and we're going to put that money, you know, and have some safe investment. And that equals retirement. And then there's this new school way that we like to talk about now that, you know, you and I are, you know, are very keen on, and others that we've talked to are as well, is that, you know, we use your principal residence as a vehicle to buy more real estate as a starting point. Okay. So now it becomes your investments plus the equity in your multiple properties equals a real retirement. And I think a retirement on your own terms. Right. So that's what we like to talk about, is that, you know, the potential of these traditional having multiple properties is what I like to call, like, you know, living the good life. You get to make different decisions. There's more opportunities available for you because you've got millions of dollars really at your disposal. So I want to show you then, you know, the overview of how to create that $2 million. It's actually up even higher in this example. So let's say from the beginning, we buy that first investment property that we talked about. After 3 or 4 years, you've built up some equity in that property, right? We're going to refinance out 80% of it. We're going to take 150,000 and we're going to purchase property number 2. Then after 2 more years, you're going to refinance both of these properties. We're going to take out another 150,000 to purchase property number 3. And then, you know, the equity created after 15 years in these 3 properties is going to be $1.6 million. If you held them for 25 years, you're going to be at $3.6 million.
I think I like the mutual fund option better.
Sure you do. So you're still going to be mortgage free, right? But you can be mortgage free a lot sooner. So in our example, sorry, I'm going to go back to that, right? You know, in this example here, right? Like, you started out with just that $100,000 investment. That's really what you started with, right? You either borrowed it or you took it out of your principal residence, and it cost you about $400 a month, and that's where you started from. And from that, it grew. And yeah, this is a plan over a number of years. It's not overnight. You know, I'm not. You know, this is how it has to. You know, this is how it has to work if you're going to be doing it just on this scale, and it's manageable. It's reasonable. We're not telling you got to, you know, go out and buy 2 properties a year or 3 properties a year. But, you know, this is a very normal plan that we do with clients that we have over the long term. And after the first 3 years or so, they're already into their second property. Yeah. So would you rather be mortgage free, like the old school way, paying off your mortgage in 25 years, like every, you know, like the 95%, or, you know, end up with, after that 25 years, you still have 5 years left on your mortgage, but you're worth 3 million plus more?
Yeah, no kidding.
So I know it all sounds great on paper, but, you know, everybody does say to me, you know, okay, Robert, sorry, Dan, can you see us here? Can you see us on the screen? Did I just cut us off?
I think we're on the bottom.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. So because I wasn't sure here if I just moved us out of the way. Yeah. So listen, the next 3 things are really important, you know, and I think these 3 points is what keeps a lot of us out of investing in property, right? I don't want to be a landlord. What if the tenants don't pay? They damage our property. I don't want to be fixing toilets in the middle of the night. Again, I have a young family and I don't want to drive out there and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe if we look back at the last slide with the $3.6 million, maybe those thoughts aren't so bad.
But I got to tell you, listen, Daniel, you know what? I wouldn't want to do that either. In fact, if I had to do all this stuff, I wouldn't be a property investor either. There are answers for this. There are solutions, and what is it? Well, it's property management and insurance. So, 6 to 8% of the gross rent is what the cost is going to be to place a tenant first month's rent. And then about 6 to 8% of the gross rent is a cost of placing a tenant into one of the units. Insurance costs can be an extra $600, like in my area, in Toronto, so forth, $600 per annum per unit. So if you have a 3-unit place, it's $1,200 to $1,500. And you can even get insurance that covers lost rent. So I know what you're thinking, right? You're going to say, well, Robert, that's going to eat into my cash flow. If I'm paying all these fees, then how's that a good investment? And you know what? I say to all those people, Daniel, I say, like, whether you know it or not, you're paying management fees on all the ETFs that you have invested. You're paying a fee to your broker. And whether your stocks do go up or down, they're still getting their fees, right? Versus a property.
I always hated that, by the way. It's like, if you're taking a management fee and your investor didn't make money, that's just wrong.
Exactly. You're not going to be a property manager for very long.
But even if you look at like the stock market, or I invested $100,000 and I lost 80,000, but you still took your fees. I hated that.
Exactly, correct. So it's such a disconnect. But in real estate, it's not. Your goals are really aligned, right? So
there's even probably a hybrid model. I'm not fixing a toilet in the middle of the night, but if there is a leaky toilet or something, I just call the plumber. Like, I don't go fix it myself. So I guess it depends on people's comfort levels. You can be totally hands off with a manager, or you can get the first call and just sub it out and have a good team. A plumber, electrician, everyone at your disposal.
Exactly. And listen, a property manager only gets paid if they're doing their job. If the rent's not getting collected, they're not getting paid.
Yeah. And even on the rental side, a lot of people don't realize how useful real estate agents are. When I rent a property for someone, I'm doing credit checks, letter of employment, and I'm even, not calling the phone number on their letter of employment. I'm calling the employer, like from the numbers we find on their website. Like, there's just so many steps. I've never had a bad tenant, especially in Toronto. Like, I just put a rental up the other day. I had 2 lawyers and a doctor apply. So everyone has this like the notion of like this deadbeat tenant and the leaky toilet at night. That really just isn't it.
No. And you can select, exactly. You don't have to, all the tenants are not deadbeat tenants. And if you're really putting out a quality product, you're going for a better tenant profile. The property is renovated and so forth. That's where, you're going to achieve that higher class tenant and less problems. So you're really, really depends on the.
I do think that's overlooked too. Like, I had a landlord once come to me. He's like, I keep getting bad tenants. I'm like, look at your place. It's disgusting. Like, a human being wouldn't live here. So of course you're going to get the drug dealer that, like, I looked at him in the eye. I'm like, would you live here? He's like, no. There you go. Right. You got to have a good product for a good tenant.
Exactly. Correct. Yes. And that's part of the strategy, right? And that's something that you work out with your realtor, who knows investment property, knows the market, knows the area and what its potential is, to either, upgrade the property, to find the right materials at the right cost and to, you know, to go from start to finish. And so, yeah, so with just with this, I mean, you know, if you're paying property manager, you know, if they're not finding you the right tenant, and any tenant, they're not getting paid. Your stock broker, whether he finds you the right stock or not, is still getting his fee. So it, you know, your goals are really aligned on the real estate side. So when people say, you know, that's cutting into my cash flow with all these property management expenses, insurance and all that, I say, you know what, you're paying fees on the other side too. You're just not thinking about it.
Kind of like home ownership, you know, when you see condo and, or, you know, someone doesn't want to hire a gardener and this and that, so they go and buy a condo. I'm like, but you're going to pay for it in the maintenance fees.
Right. Exactly. And then, so, you know, so here we go. So I played this little game here, myth or fact. If you are paying your mortgage off will lead to financial freedom.
Well, if you were paying attention.
Is that a myth or a fact?
If you're paying attention, we'll say that is a myth.
Exactly. That's a myth. I think, you know, we dispel that. You know, I think all of us can agree it's not today going to lead to that financial freedom, not with the cost of living and so forth that is coming out, right? Is that you end up with all this equity in your home, but you don't end up, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to sell it and then downsize and then get 3-4%. That's not the retirement that I want. Being a landlord is hard work. Myth or fact? Oh, I just gave it away.
It's a big myth.
This is a big one. It's a big. We just talked about it. It's a big objection. But you know, I gotta tell people also, like, I'm a lazy landlord. Daniel, I have 3 tools. You know, because I buy properties where I know there's going to be minimal work. I get great tenants. I get great rents. You know, I make sure I have awesome tenants. We pick from the best. I don't want to do a lot of work, right?
There's landlords who haven't talked to their tenants in years. Like, they literally haven't, you know, you should probably visit your property, but there's, like, you know, especially in the single family or condo, it's like, you know, 5 years, 2 years, like, you just don't hear or see or do anything.
That's right. That's right. And listen, you know, and if you want to, if you're like, you know, if you want to put some sweat equity in the property, if you've got a tool belt and, you know, you can want to get out there and build stuff and renovate, you know, by all means, you can do that, right? But I think the majority of us, you know, are focusing on our careers. We've got hobbies, our family. We don't want to spend all our weekends, you know, fixing a sink or that type of thing. And so that's really a myth. It doesn't have to be hard work. Now, what about this? Your kids are going to need your help to buy a home. Myth or fact?
Big fact.
That's a big fact today. And you know, like right now, listen, you're coming out of school. What are the starting salaries for kids coming out of school? 40, 45,000?
You were talking to me about that. You know, you had a client making 70 G's and, like, couldn't even buy a place.
Right. Like, you need a big down payment. You need help from mom and dad. The bank of mom and dad, and either they're co-signing, and that's what we're seeing actually today, is that you're seeing a lot of co-signers, not just people going on giving you a down payment, because that gets you so far, it does. But the banks have to see that you can repay the loan. And if you're only getting a starting salary coming out of school with 70, 45, even 70,000, you can't qualify today to carry that mortgage. So you need a co-signer. And that's what we're seeing today, is that parents are co-signing. You're getting 2 or 3, 4 people even that, you know, grouping together with on the application. And that's something that I think that's a trend. I think that's gonna continue this year, and it's gonna keep going.
You gotta buy now for your kids. Otherwise, like, again, 20 years from now, your kids are bleep.
Well, I mean, listen, if yeah, that's it, exactly. Because, like, what's their income going to be in 15 years as starting salary with inflation? 80,000, you know, and then with, you know, inflation, not, you know, and then, you know, what's property is going to be, you know, what's the starting property going to be? Maybe 700,000-800,000, maybe higher. So
imagine builders building a 60 square foot condo one day.
Right, exactly. Like you're not going to have the chance to help them. Sorry, you're sorry. You're going to not. They're not going to have like a chance. So you're going to have to help them. So I think that's a definite fact. Um, and then what happens? I get this a lot. So what happens? Well, what happens over the next couple of years, Robert? How is that going to affect me as a real estate investor? If is the property market going to keep going up? And I tell them, listen, Daniel, I play the long game. I'm not interested so much in the next 3 years. I'm looking to hold this property 10, 15, 20 years. And if I look at that over a longer period of time, as we looked at 30 years, you're looking at a 7% average of the last 30 years. So even if I take a more conservative number, you're still better off. So I don't worry too much about the next 1 or 2 years. If there's dips in the market, I want to be looking to hold this for 10 plus years.
Real estate gets sick, but it never dies. Right?
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
That is a good one. So
right, like no matter how bad the year is or how sick it gets, it's always coming back.
Right. Yeah. So what do you get? So if there's all these things here that, I say that, so what happens is that people, they're like, man, you know what, this sounds great. And I get excited about it. Then I go online and I researching on Google and I go down all these rabbit holes, Daniel, and I get everyone's opinion, do this, do that, buy in this market. And I get really confused. I get just like, whoa, there's just too much. I don't know. There's too many questions that I have, and who do I trust and all that. And I'm telling you, you don't have to do any of that. Okay. I have an easy button for you. You don't have to, you buy one property, the right property in the right area, you get the right tenant in there, you hold it for 15 years and that's it. And
it's never the wrong time to buy the right property.
Right. Correct. And so what I say is to clients or to people, here is that there's an easy button and that's our phone number. That's my phone number. We have, working with us, we have a team of lawyer, accountant, home inspector, property manager, mortgage broker, realtor, appraiser. We vetted all these people. There's nothing for you to do. You just have to, start with us. We build that plan for you. We show you from your own income and so forth how we can leverage it to help you get into that property market.
Should someone get pre-qualified? Like, what if they're, just maybe one day I'll buy a house, or I'm not ready now. Should they reach out? Like, when's the right time to get pre-qualified?
Yeah. So I would say right after this, I'm going to send out an email to people that are on this call and so forth that we can talk to that are very happy to schedule with us. Now is a great time to get that. As you said, there was a lot. Things have calmed down a bit, and I think there's lenders are getting a little more time to provide that pre-qualification. So working with me and my team, we can get that for your clients. So the investment budget. So yes. So this was an example here. I don't know. Can you see this clearly on your screen?
Yep. It's a bit cut off, but
it is a bit cut off there. Okay. So let me. I don't know if I could
zoom out on the Zoom.
Cut off. There we go. Technical. I said we weren't the most technical. I'm not, at least, the most technical person. But I don't know. Did that help, or maybe not?
No, it's pretty good.
Maybe. Okay. All right. So basically, okay. So before dissecting this was actually a live scenario. So I'm going to walk you through it, and this is what, maybe 4 minutes. It's really informative. So we're going to start on the right side. This is actually, now I took out the name of the property, but basically this was a couple, okay, a married couple. We made them a budget. This is what I do for all my clients, okay? I break out the numbers onto a spreadsheet. I do a video for them, and we talk, and they can watch this on their own time. And, it doesn't, no pressure. And they can, I break out for them what we're going to do here. So it's not just a lot of numbers. I'm going to go through it. And then, so this was a property. So this is a married couple, police officer in Hamilton. He earns about $115,000 a year. Okay. And they have 3 kids. The wife is stay at home. So obviously the kids are a little bit younger. And they were introduced to my team because they wanted to refinance. And I said, okay, well, absolutely. I looked at their file and they needed to do a refinance. But, as I got to talking to them, Daniel, the more I looked under the hood a bit, I was like, man, I can tell that, you're pretty stressed. I can see, that I can fix things. We can refinance, do a short-term fix here. But then what happens after that? What does retirement look like to you? What's your plan? And, I asked these questions, and guess what? There is no plan. They can't see the forest through the trees. They've got quite a bit of debt. They've got $100,000 in, you see, unsecured debt, personal line of credit, and so forth. And that's okay. I mean, we see a lot of people with a scenario like this, young families, they're carrying quite a bit of debt. And they would love to get into the property market, but they just don't see how they can do it, right? Okay, so what we did was we figured out a way to take that, refinance them, and help them get that new property. Can you see the numbers here, Daniel?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I don't know how big they're coming in, but all right. So let's see. So from the top here, we can see here that, total household carrying cost of their debt, total household payment. They have $100,000 in overall debt. They're paying off all these payments, $1,300. Their total home expense is $2,400. They have a mortgage at the time was 3+%, so forth. So the total whole household payment, $37,440 a month. So that's quite, that's a lot to carry on a one salary on $100,000. And if we go to the middle, this is how we refinance them, right? So this middle column shows that, this refinance. So what we did for them was we got them a little bit lower rate. I mean, that helped. It's not really the main point, but it did help a bit. And we took that debt down by refinancing them, putting them into taking equity out of their property. So Daniel, are you, so, okay, so here we are. So we've got a little bit better interest rate, as I said. The mortgage amount, we increased it, in fact. So from the original amount, we actually went up. The mortgage amount went up to $645,000. We had legal costs, as you see here, about $1,100 in fees. And, we paid out, we used that refinance from the $413 that they had to $645. We paid out that $100,000 in debt. We took that onto the mortgage. So now they're debt free. We paid a small mortgage penalty, cost of doing business about $3,500. It still made sense for us. Some people are real worried sometimes about mortgage penalties and they don't want that to happen. Well, guess what? I mean, to get yourself out of this kind of debt, it's a small price to pay. We can always build these penalties into the new mortgage. So it's not a cash flow thing. You don't have to come up with the money. And it's many times makes a lot of sense.
I think that's one thing that's always overlooked when people get a mortgage. They're always looking for that cheap fixed rate. When you go with variable, I mean, when you break your penalty, it's usually just the 3 months interest. I mean, it could be 3 grand versus 30 grand, right? It's such a game changer that no one ever talks about.
It is correct. Huge difference. And what people also don't realize is that they can still go fixed if they get, they get nervous or they think that the market is going to change or is going to turn. They can lock in that fixed rate. You tell your lender that we've put you with, hey, you know what? I want to move to a fixed rate. Guess what? If after the first 6 months or so, they'll do it for you.
It's what, it's probably just like a phone call, no? Like something super simple.
It's a phone call. It's a few papers to sign, and they don't charge you fees for it.
Right.
They're not going to charge you a break fee.
Meanwhile, you've rolled the variable out maybe for half your mortgage at that low rate too.
Exactly, correct. Yeah. So having a variable rate, we like it. I'm not saying it's right for everyone in every situation, but in a lot of situations, it actually gives you a lot more flexibility, optionality. It has to make sense. Right now, we feel based on the rates, it makes sense.
I guess also your client's profile. Like for me, I'm risk adverse, and I'm going to ride that variable. I look historically, it's always been cheaper. Like I'm taking the variable, and like you said, if I ever get scared, just lock it in.
That's right. And then what most of the large banks do is that your payment is fixed. So that's, people don't get it. They think that with the interest rates change, I'm going to be paying, if it goes up, my mortgage payment's going to go up too. And I'm going to be out, I'm going to have to come up with more money every month. It's not true. People don't realize that actually what changes is the proportion of interest and principal that you're paying in each of your payments. So if you're in a variable mortgage and rates do happen to go slightly up, what happens is your monthly payment does not change. Your cash flow, whatever you budgeted for, is the same. What changes only is the proportional amount of interest or principal within that monthly payment.
So if you took a 25-year amortization and interest rates go up, does that mean the amortization goes up as well?
So if you took a 25-year, so what happens is the amortization is going to shift, right? And what we try to do with a lot of clients is that we put them into a 30-year amortization from the start. And many of the larger banks we work with are going to offer that, even on rental property. And the benefit of that is that we can actually shorten that payment. So we can raise that amortization, and if we want to, and if as that situation like you're describing, the rates go up and now all of a sudden your payment goes up, well, guess what? We can actually increase back to 30 years, again at no cost. We can increase that amortization again because you've already qualified you. We've put you at the beginning. That's important because some mortgages, if you set that mortgage at the start at 25 years, they don't allow you to move it to 30. You have to get a new mortgage. If you start that mortgage at 30-year amortization, you can adjust it up or down however you want. And that way you can adjust your payment if you're having trouble. So a few of the other tricks there, right? Adjusting.
Another reason why it's good to use a broker.
Exactly. Correct. Yes, because they don't always, because we give you the options. We give you all the options as far as what the tips are and so forth, as far as what life happens, and sometimes there could be job loss, there could be divorce. You could have a sick parent or so forth. Your cash flow demands could change. So having that amortization adjustment is really important.
It's
so
nice,
in this case,
like if you go to the bank, the bankers are moving, shifting. I guess, let's say I get a mortgage with you 2 years down the road, I could probably still call you up and ask for advice.
For sure. Yeah, we're definitely open to it. so what happened, just to finish off here with this idea of what we did. So as you can see, after they paid down, they got the 600, they paid off that debt to pay out 100,000, paid the penalty, paid off the original mortgage, 413. They're still left with 126. That's the number in the red there, 126,719. That's the total, what we call equity takeout, that they got cash in the bank, a check, that we went out and we took we took that money and we used a part of it as a down payment on that new property. And that's that column here of numbers on the left. So we went out, we bought that property. We did a 30-year amortization on that property, as you can see at the top there. Now, again, the mortgage rate's high. I mean, these numbers may be a bit out. Right now, the mortgage rates are going to be much lower than that. But the example really is the same, 20% down. The purchase price was $565,000. The down payment was $113,000, right? There were legal fees. There was HST on the legal fees. There was an appraisal fee. They had to pay land transfer. So all these things came out of that $126,000. We had to show up at the lawyer's office with $123,000, and that all came out of that first amount that we refinanced them with. So keep in mind here, they didn't come up with that money on their own. We originally refinanced them what they wanted. We got that debt out. We took that money. We found them this property, $560,000, and we went there and bought this new property. Now their monthly cost on that property is $1,934 a month. That's the new mortgage it worked out to. In this example, property taxes are $250 a month, $247, and they had rental income of $3,500. And why? Because actually this was a duplex. So this was a property that had an upstairs and a downstairs that they rented. So this is what we did. Look what we accomplished here on one salary, Daniel, $115,000. I mean, the client was ecstatic. We got them, when we introduced them, we saved them a couple $1,000 a month in cash flow by refinancing. We got them out of this crazy 18% unsecured debt that they were paying just the interest payment on. They bought a new property that's going to appreciate. It's part of their one property blueprint. And they're going to be worth over $1 million, like from just that one property, huh? They've got plans already in place to buy another one because they got a nice pop already. This happened, as I said, a couple of years ago. So they got a nice pop already and they want to do this again. So
that's a bit better than credit card debt.
Exactly. So, I mean, and so I'm telling you that this is the kind of budget that will build out for you. Build this out. This is a custom proposal. We'll build this out for you, whether you're, and this is, for all of your clients, whether it's a first-time home buyer, whether you're selling or buying or refinancing, we do a budget like this. We record it as a video and we walk you through it line by line, showing you all the moving parts like I did today. And then you get a link for it so that you could then use that. You can take that link. Because I know, what I just right now, I went through it pretty fast. It's like, for you and I, we're used to seeing all these numbers, but for everyone else, it's like drinking from a fire hose. It's like it's too much, too fast. So what we say is, I'll record it. I'll have a link for you. Sit down on your couch with a glass of wine. You and your significant other. You can review what I'm talking about here, and that's great.
You ever try drinking from a fire hose?
No, I've never held a fire hose. I hear that's hard to count. So right. So we schedule a call, build that customized plan, and Daniel and I, Daniel will go out there and we'll start shopping for investment property.
Absolutely.
So I do get some questions, you know, and I think, I don't know if you see there in Facebook, if you see, since we're live, if you see any Facebook questions that have come out. If not, I have a couple of questions here that I always get asked. I can go through it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, one thing here, when they looked at my example, they asked me, did they use a HELOC, or in other words, a home equity line of credit, right? And what, you know, so the answer is, in this case, right, like, did they use a HELOC? What is a HELOC? A HELOC is really that line of credit on your home, a secured line of credit. And because it's secured against your primary residence, you're getting a much lower rate of interest. You're getting something close to prime. Prime rate today is 2.45. So you're getting something, you know, a little bit above that is going to be your line of credit cost. Quarter point, half a point, you know, you're going to be buying, you're going to be getting money under 3% for sure. So yeah, so your clients, you know, you can use that to buy another property. And that's something that it's a great way to do that. And that's what I've done. This example that I gave is in Hamilton. You know, is Hamilton, you know, is that the only place that we feel is great for real estate, or as I mentioned? No, absolutely not. I mean, this can work anywhere here in Ontario, right? You know, if we're playing the long game, right? You know, you don't have to be an expert in where the next great place to invest in. I mean, you know, working with a realtor, they will help you do that, but it's not, you know, you don't have to worry about timing the market and getting, you know, at the bottom and going up, because you're going to be holding this for the long term.
And then the options there too. You know, sometimes I've sold people properties. They're like, oh yeah, I'm never selling it. You know, someone walks, you know, 1 year later, here's 500 grand profit. See you later. Take your money and run. You know, that does happen.
Exactly. Correct. Yeah. So yeah, so that's it today. That's the whole thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm glad that we had a chance here. I hope the Facebook feed came through.
It might have, we might have had a couple of blips along the way, but we're definitely going to save this video. You can watch it later.
Exactly.
Promote it. I'm going to send it to my database. So even if you're not here, you're getting the video.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Actually, when you end the video, make sure you hit save.
Yes, we will. Yes, I have. Yes, we've recorded it as well, and you'll get a copy of that that you can share.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.